How you doing? Back outside, going for my daily 1-hour walk. An update on how things are in New Zealand. Currently we have around 600 cases, but the amount of new cases today is only 45. Yesterday it was 49, the day before that it was 80 something. So at the moment we're seeing a downward trend, which is great news. This is brilliant news, but we'll probably still need one more day to identify if it's a proper downward trend. But it's looking good. It's also the last day of lockdown for me. The Auckland region is staying in lockdown, and my region, and the rest of the country, is moving to level 3, which means that this is the last episode of Lockdown with Jordan. And so there are a few things I wanted to touch on. Besides just a basic reflection, I feel like because this is a diary of a person in lockdown in New Zealand, for the sakes of people coming back and seeing this, I wanted to mention that while it may seem like New Zealand had a fairly cozy way in and out of this, the numbers do show quite obviously that Delta is a completely different beast. A really easy example to show you that is that last year, from the point of having one case, it took us a whole month to get to 100. And that's with no lockdown. So from 1 case to 100 took a month. But with Delta, this year, it took us less than a week to go from 1 case to over 100. And that's with lockdown. So that's how infectious this strain is. And more frighteningly, we've had more hospitalizations per capita than last time by a gross amount. At the moment, we have around 40 cases in hospital, and 6 of those are under the age of 1, which is a pretty sobering piece of information. Delta is a different beast. Where it is similar to last year though, it took New Zealand 2 weeks of lockdown before we started seeing a decrease in cases. And the exact same has happened this year. In fact, our first decreased number in cases came on day 13, which proves that going hard and going fast with lockdown actually works. But unfortunately, the option of going fast for most countries has passed. The projection that was given last time for the amount of cases that we could have had we not locked down in the time that we did was around 50,000. And given that we had under 2,000 cases in the end, with only 26 deaths, had we actually not acted the way we did and ended up where the projections had us, the amount of fatalities that we would have had back then would have been catastrophic. And when you apply the same working maths to the numbers that we're seeing this year with Delta, the projected number of cases had we done nothing this time would have been in the hundreds of thousands, meaning the mortality rate would have been in the thousands at least. And that's the numbers, that's the science. Those are the real peer-reviewed stats taken and given by professionals, which is why it is so important that we don't trivialize these things. When we're talking about the possible fatalities and debilitations as a result of long COVID of thousands of people, we honestly can't afford to be speculative. Wary of outlying information, of course, but in terms of the directions and steps that we take, it's so imperative that we stick to actual confirmed numbers. Which is why people like Boris Johnson and Donald Trump and even Judith Collins are so dangerous, because these people are happy to ignore or even be vague about those numbers for the sake of money or political brownie points. I mean, I'm very cautious of ever praising a politician, because I feel like today our society already expects far too little of them. But if I'm really honest with myself, I'm not above saying that I appreciate the approach that Jacinda Ardern and her current government have taken with COVID-19. The level of intelligence and compassion that she's brought to her seat has saved a lot of us. And I say that fairly confidently because the opposition at every step of the way has pushed for opening the borders and relaxing protocols, or even just straight up ignoring numbers. And I think in terms of this being a diary of somebody in lockdown, it's probably important to note that at this point in time, August 2021, it's my observation as a citizen of New Zealand that had the opposition party been in charge during this event, a lot of us wouldn't be here right now. And I wouldn't normally say that either because I honestly try as hard as I can to not praise politicians in any way, shape or form. I really do feel like we congratulate them for doing the simplest things like their job. But in this particular case, yeah, the Prime Minister of this country did a really good job. Again. To this day, I haven't seen a single world leader do what she has done in terms of simply holding a press conference every single day where she speaks directly to the press, answering questions. And not only that, but she's always kept a medical professional at her side, so that if there's ever a question to do with medicine or virology, she's deferred it to the professional. She has not answered a single medical question. She has only ever said, "I'll get back to you," or deferred directly to the professional at her side. And that, to me, is a sign of competent leadership. And I mean that as a person who's been in leadership roles to do with safety. I've been a site manager and I've taken tours on the open ocean and in the forest. And these are situations where people can die. And what I've seen is the strongest leaders are the ones that draw on the strengths of their team, not the ones that try to answer every question themselves and take ownership of every single success, like Boris Johnson or Donald Trump. That's real leadership. Or rather, that's just responsible leadership. And I appreciate it. But where have we been and where are we going? Great question. Well, where have we been? We have, in the last 14 days anyway, applied for a grant. We've taken a look behind the scenes. We've worked out, made art, explained how viruses work, played with robots, skipped, danced, gone back to school, checked in with our mental health, and I showed you my first ever audition, which was pretty embarrassing. But yeah, we've been pretty damn busy. But where are we going? Well, for myself and the rest of New Zealand, apart from Auckland, we're moving to level 3, which is basically a slightly more relaxed version of lockdown, where shops and takeaway food places are now open, but still social distancing and still not gathering in large groups. From there, we move to level 2 in about 2 weeks, where we can start extending our bubble to close friends and family and having gatherings of, I think, 100 people at level 2. And then from there, we all move to level 1, which is just life as normal, but being considerate, scanning wherever you go, and I think wearing masks on public transport. So basically, Tokyo. We just go, level 1 is just pretend like you're in Tokyo. Level 0 is realistically just COVID doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So that's a goal for the future. I think possibly in, I don't know, 7-10 years, but level 0 is definitely a thing. New Zealanders in general just hope for level 1. That's where we're all comfortable. In fact, to be honest, I think most of us are pretty comfortable at level 2 because we're not terribly social, but level 1, that's life as normal. For me, specifically, as I mentioned yesterday, I have a whole other series that I was going to bring out before we went into lockdown. Like a whole other thing, but it was so based on travel and being in groups of people that I thought it was maybe inappropriate or bad timing to bring it out during a lockdown. But I will be bringing it out soon, probably in the next few weeks. And it covers everything from going to Thailand, to Australia, to Samoa, the Cook Islands, and just traveling New Zealand, because I've probably seen, in all honesty, more of the Pacific Islands than I have of my own country. It's also a look at what it's like to be an actor on TV and film, or even what it's like to direct a film. Things like doing stunt work or trying to learn a language in a week so that I can do auditions overseas. I've pretty much filmed almost every adventure that I've had in the last, I guess 2 years. And a lot of that's thankfully down to having a competent government which made all of those things possible in that time. So yeah, this is ultimately the last episode of Lockdown with Jordan Rivers. But it is not the last of Jordan Rivers. I'll probably just move from making daily videos to making weekly videos. Because daily videos is hard. This is difficult. I don't know who the hell would do this. Who in their right mind would think that this was a good idea? Me. But yeah, that series will probably start in the next 2 weeks. So stick around for that, because I guarantee it's pretty entertaining and there's some really cool stuff in there that I know you'll like. as well as some pretty dodgy stories that I hope you won't judge me for. But yeah, hopefully this is the last lockdown series ever. Fingers crossed. But regardless, I'll see you soon anyway. For now though, this is day 14. Cheers.